On the hottest afternoon of July, on a lonely stretch of Arizona highway, where almost no cars ever passed, a shiny black car slowed to a stop on the gravel. Out stepped a man whose face was known and loved in nearly every home in America. He walked up to a rickety little lemonade stand and bought a single paper cup from an old man who had no earthly idea who he was. That old man had stood out there every single day that summer, in heat that could knock a strong man flat, in front of a stand almost no one ever stopped at. The whole town had begun to whisper that he'd lost his mind. Nobody could understand why he wouldn't just pack it up and go home. And soon, nobody could understand why that stranger kept coming back either. Because he did come back. The next day, and the day after that. Two men on an empty desert road, each one carrying a secret the other could not begin to guess. And by the time you learn what really bound them together across more than 20 years, you may never look at a simple glass of lemonade the same way again. So please, stay with me. The town was one of those small, sun-bleached places you pass through in the Arizona desert and forget by the next mile marker. A gas station, a diner, a little church with peeling paint. And out on the old highway, past the edge of town, stood a small wooden lemonade stand that a man named Walter set up every morning of that long, brutal July. Walter was in his 70s. Each day he loaded his old truck with a folding table, a glass jug, a sack of lemons, and a block of ice, drove to the same patch of gravel, raised his faded umbrella, and waited. The sun would climb, the heat would shimmer up off the blacktop in waves, and Walter would sit there, hour after hour, in weather hot enough to fry an egg on the hood of a car. Here is the thing no one in that town could make sense of. Almost nobody ever stopped. That road was quiet, the kind only the lost and the wandering ever found. On a good day, Walter might sell 3 or 4 cups. On most days, none at all. He'd come home with his jug still full, his lemons gone soft, and not $1 to show for 12 hours in the sun. The folks in town shook their heads and worried. His neighbor Doris begged him to give it up before the summer put him in the ground. But Walter would only smile, tip his straw hat, and say the same gentle thing. "Not yet, Doris. Not just yet." He never told a living soul why he wouldn't stop. And that was the first mystery of that long, hot summer. The second mystery arrived on a Tuesday, in the worst of the heat, when a black car came drifting down that empty road and pulled onto the gravel. A man climbed out, and Walter squinted up at him through the glare. An ordinary-looking fellow in a simple, short-sleeved shirt, clean-shaven, with a quick, warm smile and eyes that seemed to be laughing at some private joke. He asked for a cup of lemonade as if it were the most important purchase he'd make all year. Walter poured one. The man drank long, closed his eyes, and sighed like a fellow who'd found water in the desert. "Best I ever had," he said, and he meant it. He laid down a bill far too large for one paper cup, told Walter to keep the change, and drove off into the heat. Walter didn't think much of it. People passed through, except the man came back the very next day. Same time, same easy smile. Another cup, another bill far too large, another happy sigh. And the day after that he came again. By the end of the week, Walter had begun to expect him the way you expect the sun. The stranger would lean against the stand and talk. And oh, could that man talk. He could turn the dullest story into something that had Walter laughing until his sides ached. He never gave his name, and Walter never asked. But the old man began to look forward to that black car on the horizon more than almost anything. What he couldn't figure out, the question that kept him up at night, was simple. Why would a man drive all the way out here, day after day, for a cup of lemonade he could get anywhere? The stranger was in no hurry to explain himself. He just kept coming. And little by little, he began to ask Walter gentle questions. Not nosy ones, just kind. How long had he run the stand? Where had he grown up? Was he married? Walter answered some and stepped around others, the way old men do. But whenever the talk drifted near the stand itself, near why he kept it going out here where nobody came, Walter's face would change. A shadow would pass over it. He'd go quiet and find some reason to fuss with the ice. The stranger noticed. He was a man who could read the whole weather of a heart in a face. But he never pushed. He let the silence be, poured a little of his own warmth into it, and waited. And there was something else the stranger noticed. Every morning when Walter set up that stand, he poured 2 cups before anything else. One he kept for himself, sipping it slowly through the long hours. The other he set down, ever so carefully, on an empty wooden stool beside his chair. And there it stayed, all day, untouched, sweating in the heat, until the sun went down. Then Walter would pour it quietly into the dust, rinse the cup, and pack it away. He never explained it. He never even glanced at it while the stranger was there. But the stranger saw that second cup, saw the tender way the old man's hands set it down, and something in his chest went still. Some questions, he understood, you have to be trusted with before you can ask. By now, you may already have a feeling about who that stranger was. But out on that road, not one soul had put it together. And yet, they were in the company of a man the whole world adored. A man who had made millions laugh until they cried, and just as many weep at how tender he could be. He was famous in the quiet corners where such things are known for one habit, seeking out the ordinary people the world overlooked. Waitresses, janitors, cab drivers, lonely old men at forgotten roadside stands. He'd find them, talk to them like they were the most fascinating people alive, and leave them standing 10 feet taller. He gave away more kindness in a week than most manage in a lifetime, and rarely let anyone catch him. It was near the end of July when the mystery cracked open. The heat that day was murderous, well past 110. Walter had no business being out there, but out he went, same as always. And by mid-afternoon, when the black car came rolling up, the stranger found the old man slumped in his chair, gray in the face, hands trembling, the second cup sweating untouched on its stool. The stranger moved fast. He got Walter into the shade, pressed the cold jug against his neck, and talked low and steady until the color came back. Then he folded up the stand and drove Walter home. And he didn't just leave him at the door. He walked the old man inside, made sure he drank and ate and stayed. And there, in that small, quiet house, the stranger finally understood the first of the 2 secrets. Because the walls of that house told a story all by themselves. Everywhere he looked, there she was. A woman with the kindest eyes and soft silver hair, laughing in 100 faded photographs. And in more than a few, standing proudly behind that very same stand back when its paint was bright and new. Her name was Ruth. She'd been Walter's wife for nearly 50 years, And that stand had been her idea, her joy, her whole heart. She'd started it decades ago, not to make money, but because she loved handing a cold drink and a kind word to travelers on a hot road. Ruth had passed away that spring, and a grieving old man, with no idea how to carry a loss that size, had done the only thing he could think of. He kept her stand alive, driving out every day to pour 2 cups, one for himself and one for the empty stool where she used to sit. That was why he wouldn't stop. After that day, everything between the 2 men changed. The stranger didn't just stop by for lemonade anymore. He came to help. He'd show up in the cool of the early morning to load the heavy truck so Walter wouldn't have to lift a thing. He'd stand behind that stand all afternoon, calling out to the rare passing car in a dozen silly voices, until Walter was laughing so hard he had to sit down. For the first time since Ruth died, the old man's days had color in them again. Someone to talk to, someone to laugh with, someone who understood, without a word spoken, how heavy the silence in that house had become. And little by little, the shadow began to lift from his face. But the stranger, for all his laughter, was carrying something of his own. Walter caught it in the quiet moments. Sometimes, when the man thought no one was watching, he'd stop and just look at that old stand, at its peeling paint and faded umbrella, with an expression Walter couldn't read. Once, Walter caught him standing very still before one of Ruth's photographs, the one where she was young and laughing behind the brand-new stand, his eyes wet, his hand pressed flat against his chest. Walter nearly asked him then, but the stranger cleared his throat, flashed that warm smile, and turned the talk to something else. It was as if there were a story on the tip of his tongue that he hadn't yet found the courage to tell. And then, on the last evening of that long July, he finally told it. They were sitting on Walter's porch as the sun went down, the fierce heat at last beginning to break, when the stranger set down his glass and grew very quiet. "I want to tell you something," he said, and there was a tremble in his voice Walter had never heard before. "A long time ago," he began, "back in the summer of 1973, I was a scared, broke kid driving across this country in an old car held together with hope and duct tape. I was chasing a dream nobody believed in, about ready to give it up. And one afternoon, out here in the Arizona desert, in heat just like this, my car nearly gave out, and so did I. Out of water, out of money, nearly out of hope. And then, up ahead, I saw it. A little lemonade stand with a woman standing behind it. His eyes were shining now. I had only a few coins to my name," he said softly, "and she took one look at me and wouldn't take a single one. She poured me the coldest, sweetest lemonade I ever tasted," the stranger went on, barely above a whisper. "And she told me something I have never forgotten. She looked me in the eye and said, 'Son, this world is going to try to talk you out of that dream. Don't you let it. You go out there and make people happy, and come back and tell me about it someday.' And she sent me on my way with a full jug and a full heart, never asking my name." He looked up at Walter, tears falling freely. "I made it," he said. "That dream came true, just like she told me to. And for more than 20 years I've searched for that stand, to come back and tell her, like I promised. When I finally found it this summer, I found you instead." Walter looked at the man on his porch, at the clean-shaven face and laughing eyes gone soft with grief. And all at once, he knew exactly who had been buying his lemonade all July. It was Robin Williams, and the woman who had saved him was Ruth. The two men sat on that porch a long while, in the kind of silence that says more than words could. The most beloved comedian in the world and a grieving old widower, both weeping over the same wonderful woman. Robin was 20 years too late to thank Ruth to her face, but he was not too late to do something about it. In the weeks that followed, quietly, without a word to the press, Robin Williams made sure Ruth's stand would stand on that road forever. He bought the patch of land it sat on. He set aside a small fund so Walter would never again work himself half to death to keep it going. And he had one simple sign made, hand-painted, to hang above the stand. It did not carry his name. No credit, no headlines, no cameras. He asked only that it carry Ruth's spirit forward. It read, "Ruth's Stand, a cold drink and a kind word for anyone having a hard day. No charge. Pay it forward when you can." When the summer ended, Robin went back to his own life, to the movies and the fame and the noise. But he'd left something behind on that quiet Arizona road that would outlast any film he ever made. Walter kept the stand, just as he always had. Only now, he wasn't grieving alone. Word got around, the way it does in small towns, and travelers began to seek the place out. A trucker having the worst week of his life, a runaway teenager with nowhere to go. They'd find that little stand, a kind old man, and a cold glass of lemonade pressed into their hands with no bill to pay. And beside it, that hand-painted sign, telling them to pay it forward someday. Ruth's kindness, the same kindness that once saved a broke young dreamer in that desert, was rippling out again into hundreds of lives she'd never meet. Robin Williams left this world in the summer of 2014. The whole world wept for him, for the laughter he'd given us across 40 unforgettable years. And in all the tributes, all the stories about his enormous, tender heart, there was one that never got told, because almost no one knew it. A little lemonade stand on a forgotten road in Arizona, kept alive in the name of a woman most of the world had never heard of, by a man who never wanted the credit. Out in that small desert town, an old widower named Walter heard the terrible news like everyone else. And that evening, he walked out to Ruth's stand, and he poured not 2 cups now, but 3. One for himself, one for his Ruth, and one, at last, for the scared young man she'd once believed in, who had grown up to believe in everyone. We so rarely know, in the moment, which of our small kindnesses will matter. Ruth never knew. She was just a woman with a lemonade stand and a soft heart, handing a cold drink to a frightened boy on a blazing day. She could never have dreamed her few kind words would carry that boy to the top of the world, or that he'd come back half a lifetime later to make certain her kindness would never end. That is the strange arithmetic of a good heart. You give a little, freely, expecting nothing, and somewhere down the road it comes back multiplied beyond reason. So the next time the day feels too hot to bear, and someone crosses your path who is weary and worn, be their cold glass of lemonade. You may never know what it sets in motion. Thank you for sitting a while with me today. Be gentle with one another out there, and I'll be right here waiting whenever you're ready for the next story.